Good morning. We're halfway through term and things are starting to get busy.
Today we'll be bringing you all the important news headlines and a short video from the Chaplaincy Centre.
We'll also be discussing the controversial Union Council debate on media independence.
Yeah, and coming in to tell us all about that is VP Union Development Damon Fairley.
We've already spoken to the Bale Rig Station Manager as well as Ronnie Rowlands, VP Campaigns and Communications for LUSU.
So stay tuned for Good Morning Lancaster. Hello, and we're back for the 5th episode, and the term is already halfway through. It's gone quick, hasn't it?
It sure has. The second half of term is getting busier and busier as Christmas approaches. As the date moves closer to Christmas, the university's events calendars begin to fill with festivities.
Earlier this week, a meeting of faith leaders from Lancashire took place in the Chaplaincy Centre. Here's what went on.
Well, the Lancashire Forum of Faiths is a sort of umbrella organisation that sits across the whole of Lancashire, including Blackpool and Blackburn with Darwen. And it's people from different faiths coming together to try and find common purpose on a number of things. So with respect for each other's faiths, looking at activities we can do to increase awareness, to appreciation of other people's faiths, to get more people involved. This is the annual general meeting, so it's part of the formality of what the forum has to do every year. But we also include lots of other things that we're going to be doing later on. And a really big event we've got in November at County Hall is around celebrating faith in Lancashire. So the forum's about celebrating, promoting, encouraging faiths to talk and get involved in public life as well.
So it's important for us to actually talk about these things and to begin to understand each other's perspective, whether it is a religious perspective or a life perspective. And it's important for all age groups to reflect on the meaning of life. And I'm sure as students have come to university, you'll are having loads of debates every evening, every day about what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of why I'm here on this earth, what do I wish to achieve by the time I die, all those terribly important issues that are focused around what many people have considered religion will give you the answer to. And many say religion doesn't give us the answer because religion is so stuck in bygone era and tradition which doesn't have any meaning today. And yet if you unpick a lot of that, it can have meaning. So I'm hoping by you putting a little bit out about us, you all might want to join us on our Twitter, as our chair Andy has said, or just engage with us or engage with the Multi-Faith Centre.
What do you feel as a lecturer at the university has attracted you to having the Lancashire Forum of Faiths here?
Yeah, thank you. I think the main focus of my research has been on interreligious dialogue and also how different faith communities live and coexist together. I think the main focus of my involvement with the Lancashire Forum of Faith is that how the university, which is one of the centres of education and learning and understanding, can actually participate in the local community.
Due to the sort of national presence that you mentioned, and as has been talked about before, do you think that do you feel positive that this will bring about sort of positive, constructive discussion of this sort of thing nationwide?
Questions are getting harder and harder, aren't they? Right. I think over let's say if we look over the last 20 years, at one time people might have thought that faith was dead and that there was a rise of secularism and atheism. And I think it's been a surprise to some people that actually faith isn't dead and that people of faith have actually become more vocal and expressed their faith, not just in an insular way, but in a way in which we reach out to each other. And so not only does faith have a stronger voice, I think, but I think multi-faith is he's having a stronger voice as well, which hopefully will have a positive influence across society as a whole.
Do you feel it's by doing this at the university you're able to sort of maybe promote this amongst the student body here, or promote sort of faith forums to the student body at Lancaster?
Hopefully, yeah. If you've got any students who want to get involved, you can catch us. Probably the easiest way to find us is on our Twitter account, Lancs Faiths, or the Facebook page as well. If they type in Lancashire Forum of Faiths, they'll find us, and then they can see what's going on, and they're very welcome. It'd be great to have some of them involved. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Now it's time for some of this week's headlines. This weekend we'll see the university holding Assembly for Change, the first annual conference by the Students' Union, which will see high-profile speakers, political figures and many more taking to the George Fox. Speakers include critically acclaimed author and journalist Owen Jones, and leader of the Green Party Natalie Bennett will speak over the 2 days conference. LUSU have organised the event with the hope that it will shape and sharpen our understanding of society, invigorate students into using their political voice and leave us inspired to build a better future. Saturday will also see a women's conference take place in the morning, which will involve a women's-only space to discuss feminist issues, which has caused some debate on social media over the exclusion of male feminists. LUSU have announced that they will be holding their first general meeting of the year on Thursday, week 7. The meeting, the highest decision body in the Students' Union, will give students the opportunity to have their voice heard with regards to the running of the Students' Union. 2 of the key issues expected to be discussed at GM will be forthcoming: college review and the cost of living, 2 issues which LUSU have raised over recent weeks. The Students' Union has said that more needs to be done within the higher education sector to help care leavers studying at university. Mia Scott, VP Welfare, has said that Lancaster University Students' Union is committed to a future free from discrimination and disadvantage and will strive to support care leavers at university here. Last week, Scott met with care leavers in the hope that, having spoken with them about their personal experiences and problems surrounding university life, the union will put together and implement an action plan focusing on these issues. There are about 1,300 care leavers in Lancashire, but roughly only 20 at the university, a statistic which Scott feels needs it to be improved dramatically. She said the fact that Lancashire has the largest single group of care leavers, and yet we're reaching out to only 1.5% of them and allowing their potential to flow away, is a disgrace. The government is frightened of international students, according to a Labour MP and Home Affairs Select Committee Chairman Keith Vaz. Speaking with the Huffington Post UK, Vaz went on to state that current policy regarding student visas is causing terrible damage. He believed that international students often go unappreciated in national politics, urging for the government to include overseas students in net migration figures, rather than to treat them like immigrants. The results of a study in April revealed that there has been a significant drop in number of international students coming to study at universities in England for the first time in nearly 3 decades. It also revealed that the number of postgraduates from India and Pakistan has recently halved, despite increasing numbers going to university in their own countries. Many students have supported calls from the Green Party for them to be involved in the 2015 general election debates after the inclusion of Nigel Farage. About 200,000 people have currently signed a petition for the party's involvement. The Green Party has a large proportion of support from students, which is clearly evident from the fact that in May, Lancaster students voted the Green Party's Jack Fillmore to represent them on the City Council. Green Party leader Natalie Bennett will be speaking this weekend during the Assembly for Change, where she's expected to discuss the political engagement of students prior to the general election. And that just about rounds up this week's news.
Thanks, Jess. We're now joined by Henry, news editor for Scan, to discuss some of the headlines.
Now, I think we're going to start with this Assembly for Change that I just mentioned. Can you tell us about some of, can you run us through the main political figures going to this?
Okay, well, yeah, as you said, it's a sort of big political event which will be on campus, and with that we're going to have numerous keynote speakers. One of the main ones on the Saturday evening is Owen Jones, author and journalist. He's a sort of social activist. I've seen him speak before. He's a really engaging speaker. As well as him, there's the Green Party's Natalie Bennett, who again will be another of the key ones people want to see. There's Peter Tatchell as well. He is an LGBTQ activist. He's done a wide variety of things, a long-spanning career of almost 50 years. So he as well could be a really important one for people to see and watch and see if they can get politically active after having seen.
How much student involvement do you expect?
Throughout the weekend?
Yeah.
Hopefully a lot. It's sold, they initially allocated about 200 tickets, all of which have sold out. So there's clear enthusiasm for it. Mm-hmm. Their hopes are that obviously they'll sell more and hopefully more people will continue to become involved. Although it's just a weekend event,
Correct.
The aim is a more long-term one than just the weekend. But so far, signs are good that people are getting enthused about it.
And do you think this board of high-profile speakers will be good between them engaging? Will there be good discussions, do you think?
Hopefully. One of the key events is on the Sunday, there's this question time event, which obviously
that's
like
the big
question
one,
time.
isn't it?
Yeah, there will be Natalie Bennett will be on it, which is quite an interesting one because she obviously has sparked recent debate over the fact she's not been included in the debates for the general election in 2015. And then, as well as her, there'll be Eric Ollerenshaw, who is the Conservative MP for Lancaster, Cat Smith, who is the Labour candidate who will be running against him, as well as them, there will be Tony Pearce, who's the NUS president, and other speakers as well. Peter Tatchell will be there, and I think there's supposed to be a Liberal Democrat member as well on the table. So it should be quite an interesting panel, trying to get a lot of views.
How can anyone go along and sit in the audience? How does it work?
Yeah, well, as I said, there are tickets, and for I think it's £3 for Purple Card, and then £5 generally. But yeah, all you have to do is buy a ticket and turn up. There's a sort of wide variety of things apart from that, but also there's a lot of engagement with it, as you said. With a question time thing, it'll be a question and answer session. People will have the opportunity to put their questions in advance, like question time, and then have a boom put in front of them and then speak and see if they can get their opinions heard and get some sort of engagement with leading political figures, people who can actually do something. So it'll be quite interesting to see how they react to the student response.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a big thing. Lucy must have put so much effort into the organisation of this.
Yeah, it's been a sort of quite a long-term project. Joe O'Neill, who has put it on, the Lucy VP for Education, he said to me that he sort of came up with the idea about a year ago, and it's been a long, drawn-out process from there. He did, however, sort of say that although this is something they want to sort of continue, it won't necessarily be something they can put on every year because the funding for it was relatively expensive to put on, although he says it's been on a shoestring budget, but obviously any event like this is going to be expensive. But yeah, he says that the event, because it relied a lot on Friends funding and other sorts of funding that will come around very rarely, it might be difficult for it to continue, although hopefully, if it's successful, then that might cause the university to strive to put more money into it and ensure that it does continue.
I mean, it's quite important with the general election coming up. Do you think this will get students involved for that and maybe bring more of an interest to students for politics?
Hopefully. That's definitely one of the aims. One of the aims is definitely sort of political engagement and trying to sort of treat them as politically minded civilians, basically. Too often a lot of this stuff gets pushed under the carpet until the ballot boxes turn up in May. And I think it's more than just a sort of, politics is more than just a thing you can get involved with twice in a decade. You have to sort of think about it constantly, and by doing this sort of thing, it will keep people engaged. And then, as you said, because in May it happens, educating people a bit more prior to the general election might be quite a good way of ensuring that they get their voice heard. Lancaster's a place where we can really make a difference. There's only a small majority in for the seat. So by getting people involved and so they know what decisions they're making and how they can do it, then that could really make quite a big difference.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, pleasure.
Now, one of the more controversial items brought to Union Council last week was a discussion item that suggested that 3 student medias should be restricted with regards to their editorial content.
It was also the very first time that a film crew was allowed to capture the entire Union Council on tape, marking a new era of transparency with the Students' Union. However, ironic that may be given the discussion item.
On Thursday of last week, one item was top of the Union Council agenda: should student media be independent? It proved to be a hot topic for most seated at the council, and many were arguing both sides. The discussion item, which requires a proposer and a backer, was brought to council by LUSU councillor Gabrielle Aspinall and Furness president William Headley.
Was factually incorrect and was scathing on several accounts towards most of the colleges, and was in parts unfair and in other parts rude to. And from what I can see, they've gone on all of the colleges' Facebook pages and decided that the publication on the Facebook page of the Freshers Week timetable is the final and correct timetable, and that's the amount of news, investigative journalism that's gone through. It's clearly a comment piece and it's been under news. So for new freshers that read Scan, or new people that read Scan see that, it's a dig at the college system. At the same time, as a union, we're trying to save the college system instead of this college of views.
The debate occurred in the wake of Scan's news article on the disgraced city councillor Jack Fillmore and the options for non-drinkers during Freshers' Week. Aspinall claimed that the statements made were not facts and therefore shouldn't be published under the news section. Ronnie Rowlands, the former chair of the council and VP Campaigns and Communications, had this to say.
I think it's very healthy that items regarding the student media are brought to council. I was slightly more rankled by some of the proposals therein, some of the suggestions, such as, should Scan not have free rein to discuss whatever it wants, and, who should govern Scan. I almost got the impression that council was being asked to start sort of dictating what Scan can and cannot write about, which is a difficult one, because when we first made the Scan editor independent from the FTO team, rightly or wrongly, the rationale was to give it more of a critical distance from the union. So to all of a sudden turn around and ask, should Scan be criticising union officers, I think is a bit of a non-question, really. It's one that we've had and answered by making the role independent.
Josh Dickinson, station manager for Belrig FM, also said that freedom of the press is within the station's legal obligation to broadcast.
The big thing on this is obviously that it targets Scan in particular. If these questions are being raised, they should be raised to the whole of the three student medias. All these questions in this document apply to myself, including Belrig. For instance, we are a body of Scan, of LUSU, and we're funded by LUSU. We are also critical in certain parts. Just on Tuesday, we were critical of Colin Main, for instance, and our support for education. However, that said, by Ofcom regulations, for a few different ones, 5.1, news must be presented with due impartiality. 5.13, broadcasters should not give undue prominence to particular persons or bodies. 9.1, broadcasters must maintain independent editorial control over programming. We're lucky enough at Belrig to be regulated by Ofcom, and so we have sanctions in place that prohibit us from being restricted in any way. So these include things like we can't do undue praise to a certain body, such as LUSU themselves, whereas people like Scan or LA1 and yourselves don't have these kind of protections because you're not Ofcom regulated. But that doesn't mean these regulations shouldn't still apply to you, because they're the sanctity of media. It's what our media in the whole of the UK, not just on campus, not just student news, was built on the whole point that if someone's doing something wrong, we're able to say that they're doing it wrong.
With the majority of the LUSU council members against the idea of the three student medias having their editorial content restricted, Miss Aspinall stated in her closing argument of the discussion that there should be, in her own words, a lot more communication between the colleges, the members of this council and the student medias.
I think that I'm glad that I brought it here, because I think that it showed that there needs to be a lot more communication between the colleges and the members of this council and the student media, and that's the way of going forward with it.
We're now joined by a familiar face, Damon Fairley, VP Union Development. Now, the proposers, the president of Furness, Mr. Headley, and current LUSU councillor, Miss Aspinall, closed their discussion points by calling for more communication between student media and the members of Union Council and JCRs. Would you say it's ironic that when asked to come in for an interview this week, they declined?
I wouldn't say it's ironic, because I understand that all students obviously have commitments to their course. so it's not always convenient for people to pop in for these sorts of interviews.
Can I just cut in there?
Of course you can.
We said there was no specific time, so we'd come to them whatever date in the next couple of weeks, and they refused to give us any insight on their views.
I obviously can't speak on behalf of them, but yeah, I suppose there's not really much more I can say apart from that. You probably have to ask them.
No. This higher communication, whose responsibility does it fall under? Is it the student medias, the colleges, or the council, the union council members?
I think it's half and half. So if colleges or essentially any student wants to see something in student media, it's obviously their responsibility to communicate that with student media. So you guys have adequate time to sort of think, well, is this something we want to run? Is it something we want to shout about? But equally, if there's going to be an article in Scan or you guys are doing a TV show, as I would say there is an element of responsibility to approach the people you're making that show or writing the article about to get their side as well. Yeah.
I think that's fair. Do you think that more measures need to be put in place for an easier communication between these people? Because it's often difficult to get their contact details or something that they might reply to.
Yeah, I think something interesting in LUSU is on various committees we have to organise things like Extrav, Freshers Week, all those sorts of things. We never really invite the student media to those committees because you don't really organise the week, but you do form an integral part of it in terms of communicating it and being part of it. So I think what we probably need to do going forward is make sure student media is involved in those committees. So from day one, for example, in Extravs, you'll be there and saying, well, these are the things we want to do, what do you want us to do? So we have that understanding from day one.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big event at the end of last year, the collaboration between JCRs and student medias for Extravs. And it was particularly striking that most JCRs were willing to cooperate and contribute here, but Miss Aspinall refused, and she was the former president of the college. She didn't allow for the communication to take place. How do you think that reflects on her discussion points?
I can't really comment specifically about that because I'm not too sure the reasons surrounding that. I suppose all I would say is I find it a bit strange to turn down publicity around your event.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she probably had reasons for that. But I wouldn't know what they are because I don't really know.
So back to the overall discussion point, do you think this was the right platform was the Union Council the right place to bring this?
I do. I think it's really important we have discussion items like this. It's key that LUSU Council, as student media reps are all on there, so there's LA1 TV station manager sits on there, the editor of Scan sits on there, that is the forum where LUSU officers and students can hold people to account. So if they feel that there has been an injustice, as in this case people did, well, the proposers did, I think it's absolutely right they bring this forward for discussion. I think the resolution of the discussion was very clear that we all feel that student media should be independent, and I think that's absolutely right. But I think it's really important we had that discussion in the first place. So the issue was raised that perhaps colleges feel sometimes that they're not communicated with particularly well. So that's spurred on this discussion, meaning we're now thinking of ways we can include student media in more discussions.
No, and I think it was helpful, especially Mr. Headley placed importance on truthfulness of the facts that Scan often put in their articles. Do you think this is something that needs to be brought up? Do they need to be held accountable to the facts that they're putting into their articles?
I think to a large extent Scan are held to account about their articles when, well, as we saw in council, and equally if there's an article that causes any sort of uproar in the student body, we soon hear about it. So I think that is how Scan is held to account, purely by students speaking about the articles.
So finally, do you think that something will come of this whole conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're already having talks around, as I've already mentioned, about how we can include student media in more of our, well, in a lot more of our discussions. It's essentially highlighted a big issue, which is, as an organisation, the Students' Union, there are sort of lots of different parts of the student union, they don't always come together as one, and this has highlighted that, and that's why the discussion's been really important, because it's now meant that an action will come from this, hopefully, meaning in the future everyone feels like they're on the same page, and there's not this sort of conflict.
I agree. I mean, everyone just hopes there's an ease of communication. What did you think to the first filming of Union Council? Did you think that that was a particularly good thing?
Really good. I think it's right that LUSU Council's now filmed so students can hold us to account as people that sit on it and make policy on their behalf. We take really big decisions in LUSU Council, and it's really important that students can hear what we've said on their behalf, essentially, and how we've voted. And yeah, so I think it's really positive, and I hope it continues.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us your views.
The entire student media discussion will be made available online for you to watch at your convenience. We'll be filming regular union councils in the hope that students can send in their views and questions on various items raised at the council.
The people who sit on Union Council have been elected to represent the students, so students have every right to question their decisions. Should you have something to say, contact us through our website.
And that's about all we've got time for this week's Good Morning Lancaster.
Join us for a chat with Enactus for Jailbreak, which will be going on from the 14th of November.
The 3 student medias will be competing.
Jess and Ben, our producer, are taking part as one of the teams representing LA1 TV. Here's a little plea for sponsorship that they have prepared.
Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Jess, and we're 2 of the producers from LA1 TV.
We're stood in a rather wet and rainy Lancaster, and we've been set a bit of a challenge. We have been told we should do the jailbreak challenge of this year.
So we've got 36 hours to get as far away from here as possible.
Now, the catch is we can't spend a penny on transport. That's no bus tickets, no train tickets. We can't spend a penny.
We can't even use tickets that we've pre-ordered or pre-booked, like bus passes, so it's going to be pretty tricky,
And we can't pay for them later either.
No.
But everything we do has to be within the law. We can't train hop, we can't just jump on a bus, we can't do anything illegal.
But we're doing it for the best. We're doing it for charity, aren't we?
We're probably the worst 2 people to do this jailbreak challenge. We're just not hitchhikers. I personally like my own comfort. The only thing that might head us in our favour, however, is Jess can speak 3 languages.
3 now?
You told me you could speak Italian.
Well, un poco. We'll see how it goes. As long as we get away from this rainy Lancaster, I don't really mind.
To maybe like sunny Italy, where she can't speak any Italian and she's just absolutely demonstrated. Okay, so now Jess is going to practice saying, can you please give us a lift for charity in French?
Est-ce qu'on pourrait, s'il vous plaît, avoir un petit... I don't know how... you've got me stuck.
Stuck just like we're going to be somewhere in the European Union. If you're interested in sponsoring, click the link below.
Please do.
And we are aiming to raise as much money as we can. The charities are all below as well. And we'd really love you to sponsor.
Please sponsor.
Please.
Berwick and Scan will be sending their own teams in attempt to beat us by getting further away from Lancaster.
So Jess, which direction will you be heading?
Oh, we're not sure yet. We're thinking of heading for the ferry across to France, because apparently that's quite a good option, so we'll have to see.
Well, I wish you all the best, and we will be back at the same time next week, so make sure to tune in.
Thank you for watching, and we hope to catch you on LA1 TV. Bye.
Bye.